So, aloha and good afternoon, everybody. It's 12, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'll let folks in as we go along. My name is Russell Galanti, and I'm the Floriculture Nursery Crop and Extension Agent for East Hawaii, but I do have statewide responsibilities. My main intentions for these brown bag seminars are to provide another outlet, a monthly outlet for us to give updates on the status of the coconut rhinoceros beetle here on Big Island, as well as give reminders on some of the basics of CRB biology, life cycle, and control. And it's also just going to be a good opportunity for all of us to meet and discuss the topic of coconut rhinoceros beetle. I won't be talking today. I am going to turn the Zoom video sharing over soon to Kawehi Young, who is the public outreach coordinator for the Big Island Invasive Species Committee. She is mainly outreach, so she'll be giving us the talk today on CRB updates and the additional topics. There's some other folks here joining us that are part of the response and outreach for CRB on Big Island and statewide. So it'll be interesting if we have questions that we can ask everybody. If you haven't signed up for reminders to the next seminars, I will submit the Google form through the chat. Please sign up on that Google form so I have your email and contact information, and I can send you updates for the additional meetings. With that being said, a little bit of housekeeping. Kawehi's going to share her screen. She's going to be giving a presentation. If you have questions throughout, just put them in the chat and we'll be able to ask them at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, Kawehi, please take it over.
All right, let me get my screen going. Okay, can you all see my slides?
Yes, we're seeing just the slides. Yep.
Perfect. Mahalo, Russell, for coordinating this brown bag series. I think it's a great way to keep folks updated on the work that's going on the ground. Again, my name is Kawehi. I'm the public outreach coordinator at the Big Island Invasive Species Committee. So I'm going to first start off this presentation with some introductory information about the beetle and its biology, and then I will transition into talking about the work that BIISC is doing on the ground. And so CRB, or Oryctes rhinoceros, is native to Southeast Asia. So the adults are sap feeders and they're also active at night. Now, unlike other harmful beetles, these adults are laying their eggs and their larvae are developing in decaying organic matter, often on the ground. And they are a cryptic problem. And so again, they're nocturnal, and for most of their life cycle, they're actually buried in that breeding material. And so most of their life cycle, they're not, you won't see them. They go after various different hosts, which I will get into in further slides. And a single female can lay up to 90 eggs in her lifetime. And so if we look at this life cycle, you can see that they go through 3 different larval stages. The third larval instar is when they're at their biggest, and they spend 3 to 5 months in this stage. And then they pupate and emerge as adults, where they live for about 3 to 5 months. Now, CRB, when we think of the definition of an invasive species, it's something that was introduced to Hawaii and causes harm in at least one of 3 areas: the environment, economy, and human health and way of life. And so CRB really hits all of these 3 areas. So when we think about the harm to the environment and native species, we have 23, I believe it's 23 or 24 endemic species of fan palms in Hawaii. So they're found nowhere else in the world. We have 5 that are endemic to our island. And on Oahu, where the beetle has been widespread for over a decade, land managers are seeing impacts to all 5 of the endemic lolu species that are on Oahu. And so we are really um, worried about the impacts that the beetle is going to have to our endemic lolu. And so in this picture, you can see what we call the snowflake effect, which shows after a beetle has bored through that material when it was growing within the palm. And this is what their borehole looks like. So CRB is also a threat to our economy if we think about all of the beautiful palms that we have at our county parks, state parks, all over the island. Having infestations of the beetle is only going to increase the costs of maintenance from year to year. And the beetle is also going after really important crops like banana. And this is a picture on the right of damage to hala. And CRV is also a threat to way of life. So Niu is considered the tree of life because every part of the tree is useful. The fronds to the fruit for water and even the trunk. And so it is also really important to Hawaiian culture as it is a kino lau of the god Ku. And so it's important that we protect Niu because of all of these things, right? Its importance to Hawaiian culture, its importance to agriculture, and also just to Aina as well. And so these are the primary hosts for CRB. Coconut, of course, is its favorite, along with fan palms, royal palms, and date palms. The beetle also goes after other hosts. So triangle palms, that's something that we saw in Waikoloa Village. Sago palms, pineapple, foxtail, sugarcane, kalo. And if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a more comprehensive list of hosts that was put together by the CRB response team. And I can put the link also into the chat afterward. These are the signs of the CRB damage. So what happens is at night, the beetle is flying up into the crown of the tree and burrowing into that softer part, that heart of the palm. And so it takes several months for those fronds to emerge and show that damage. And so on coconut, we're going to be seeing 45-degree V cuts. And if you look closely, you can see these scalloped edges that show where the beetle body was when it was inside of the tree. There's no other insect that's going to make a 2-inch borehole, so that's a really good indication of whether or not you're seeing CRB. And in fan palms, you see more of this snowflake effect. It's because when the fronds are all folded like that, the beetle comes and bores through. As those fronds emerge, you see the damage. And we get all kinds of reports of palms, and often they're rat damage or trimming damage, especially if you're seeing something like this right under a utility line. And then we also get reports of sickly looking palms. This one was trunk rot, so it's caused by a fungal pathogen. And when we're thinking about the invasion history of CRB in Hawaii, it was first detected on Oahu in December of 2013 at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. And it was contained to Oahu for almost a decade. So it was found spreading to Kauai, Hawaii Island, and Maui all in the same year. So that was in 2023 where we first saw it. The first detection on Kauai was in May of 2023. And later in October is when we first got our first confirmed detection of CRB, which was in Waikoloa Village. A month later, there was an arborist who was taking down a dead palm on a golf course in Maui, and he came across a grub. So that was a confirmed detection on Maui, but they're not known to be established there. In June of this year was the first detection. There were actually 2 separate detections of CRB on Lanai, which were found on a shipment of potted palms. They were, as you can see in this picture, all of that material was buried, and so CRB is not known to be established on Lanai. And March of this year was when we had our first detection in Kona. Now, Response efforts to CRB are, on behalf of a bunch of different agencies that are working together. And so our role at BIISC is really on early detection and community outreach. And so we have representatives from the county here with us. They have funded a lot of our response work. And so we're really grateful for their support. And then the Department of Agriculture is really, they are spearheading all of the efforts for treatments of trees. And Coconut Rhinoceros Beetle Response, which they're based on Oahu, but they work statewide. They've also been supporting the response efforts. And so as far as detections on our island, Waikoloa Village was our first detection in October of 2023. After that detection, we ramped up efforts on outreach, setting up traps in the area, doing backyard surveys with the detector dog, and CRB response and HDOA treated the trees in the area. And so we haven't had a detection of CRB in Waikoloa beetles, larvae, or palm damage since September of last year. The first detection, as I mentioned in the previous slide, of CRB in Kona was in March of 2025, and we are continuing to catch beetles in the Kona area. So currently, there have been 155 beetles detected and 205 larvae. And so this map does a really good job of showing where that concentration of beetles are. So in that Kona, Keahole, and up through Kona Palisades is really where we're seeing or we're catching the most beetles. And a lot of these beetles are being caught in these detection traps. And so BIISC manages an island-wide network of detection traps. And, we're a small team. And so we are really limited in, how many we can deploy, monitor, and manage. And so we're really reliant on community partners, organizations, concerned citizens who also want to be a part of this network. This trap is one of the best ways to detect the beetles early. And so it's a good way for us to find out where we need to focus our resources. These traps, I want to emphasize, are not a control tool, but they're a really essential tool for monitoring. And so this is another map showing the detections. So in green and blue are traps. And then these X's are adults. And the X's with the lighter yellow are the most recent detections. So again, these are concentrated in the Keauhole Eye Park Palisades area. And we've also had some outlier detections in places like Kiholo, Kona Town, Old Airport. And so when we find these beetles, it's really important for us to always be thinking about the breeding material and the breeding sites, right? Because you find a beetle, okay, right, what do we do next? And so that next step is to really try and focus on finding and destroying breeding material. Now, the beetles themselves can fly up to 2 miles. If they have access to adequate host palms to mulch and there's enough moisture in the area, they're not necessarily going to leave. And so the one way that they're moving over long distances is through infested host material or breeding material. So I talked a little bit about the panel traps, and I also wanted to touch on some of these other types of traps that we've been experimenting with. So, and we also are seeing folks on Oahu really innovate when it comes to trapping. And so using lights, using nets. This one on the right where we caught a beetle in the Kona area, we piled a bunch of logs along with the netting and a pheromone, and we were able to catch a beetle. And so we are branching out to really experiment with different types of trapping, things that people can be employing in their backyards, especially because we know that this beetle is spreading, into palisades, into private property, residential areas. And in terms of detection, we're also using other methods like aerial surveys. So this is something that we did in Waikoloa Village. And in October, we also did a low altitude helicopter flight over Keahole and Palisades. And this was really for us to get a better sense of just how many palms are in the area, see if we can also spot damage to palms, and also identifying potential unmanaged greenway sites that we can work on eliminating. And so we're still going through a lot of this data, but we have, I think we identified about 3,000 palm trees total within this area and about 300 potential mulch piles or breeding sites. And so breeding site surveys, it's not glamorous work, I will say that. It's a lot of sweating in the sun. So I give a lot of props to Molly and Kavika and our guys that are working out in the field, Stacy at HDOA, who has been helping us to shovel through this mulch to look for grubs. And it's not easy work, but it really makes a difference when it comes to controlling their spread. This picture in the bottom corner is a decaying palm stump, and that's actually the stump in which those first larvae were found in Waikoloa 2 years ago. We've also been working with Dr. Michelle Reynolds of Hawaiʻi Detection Dogs with her dog Manu. And so he's trained to sniff out all the life stages of CRB. And he's been really helping us with our breeding site surveys. The idea with the detection dog is they can pick up on the scent much easier. We can't even pick up the scent, right, of the larvae, but dogs are just so amazing in that way. And so they allow us to figure out where in a big breeding pile where to focus that shoveling. And so it's been really great to see the dog work. When we found CRB in Waikoloa, we were doing a lot of backyard surveys. And the work that I do along with my team, Sibley's here today, we do a lot of the public outreach. And so that's going to different community meetings. We go into the schools, we do classroom lessons, and it's been really cool to introduce students to a real life problem that's impacting their community. And so moving forward, we're going to be working really closely with Kealakekea High School. And then we also manage our different social media platforms. So we're on Instagram and Facebook. It's a really great way to keep up to date on the work that's being done. I did want to go over this graphic because I think it does a really good job of showing where the beetle is at in different stages of its life. And so, it's in the breeding material until it emerges as an adult. An adult has to feed on a living host palm in order to get that proper nutrition to be able to reproduce. And so what happens is they'll emerge, they'll feed on that host palm for like 4 to 8 days, and then go back into that breeding material to rest. And, this cycle continues until the end of their life. And so again, really just emphasizing that this breeding material, the breeding sites is really, really important. And we need to be thinking about it, especially folks who don't have palms on their property, to realize that if you have any sort of mulch or decaying organic matter, you could potentially be harboring the beetle. This is a video of a large breeding site that was at the Kona airport. We had a detector dog who actually, from the CRB response team, they flew over from Oahu, and the dog was able to find some larvae at the bottom of this pile. And so you can see this pile, it's a lot of whole material, but as you get lower down to the bottom, that material is really small. And so that's where you're going to be finding the larvae. So this pile was dismantled, put into rows, fumigated, and then hauled off to the West Hawaii Organics facility to be heat treated. And so the county plays an important role in stopping the spread of CRB. And so they have instituted best management practices to make sure that the material that's coming in is being adequately heat treated. So making sure that the mulch is spread, getting up to at least 131 degrees. You can see here at 133 degrees, all life stages are killed within 5 minutes or less. And so on day of distribution, when they're moving this material off site, they make sure that it's reaching that hot temperature. The county also has a voluntary stop movement order in place. So this is going to be through the end of January. And so any businesses or residents that are located within this area are asked to not move any potential CRB host or breeding materials. And some things that you can do is really just think about, do I have any sort of breeding material on my property? And if so, inspect that material. So things like compost, mulch, taking down any decaying palm stumps is a really good practice. Trying not to harbor any sort of green waste is really a helpful practice. Dead and dying palm trees, as they start to decompose, can be a perfect breeding site as well, along with bagged potting material. Again, don't stockpile mulch and green waste. If you make sure to not stockpile anything for 4 months or more, you can prevent them from going through their life cycle, right? Because it takes their third stage, they're in that third instar larval stage for about 3 to 5 months. So making sure to not um, keep this material in your property. When you have tree work being done, a lot of times they'll just put all those chips and everything, and then you let it sit for years. So we want to try and encourage people to not do that. Take it to green waste where it can be properly heat treated. We'd also like people to report any sort of unmanaged green waste sites that they know of. This is something that's really common on our island, especially because green waste drop-off isn't always open. And so often people are just going, to some random road or place and just throwing that material over the side. And again, this is creating potential sites for the beetle. And so if you know of any of these sort of unmanaged green waste piles, please report it to us so we can take a closer look. This is a picture of what some of these potted soil bags are looking like on Oahu. So these pictures are not from our island. They come from the CRB response team, but I really wanted to show you folks what to look out for. So, these bags tear really easily when they're being moved. And so sometimes it can be mistaken for a torn bag. But what you really want to look for is this stippling on the edges. You see the hole, but you see all of this like pinprick. That's from the beetle's legs and from them boring into the bag. And this is something that we're seeing happen a lot on Oahu because the beetle populations are so widespread. You're seeing adult beetles flying into areas where, stores where they have this sort of material stacked up outside. The beetles get in, they lay their eggs, and it takes many months for them to get really big like this, right? So just being vigilant about any sort of material that you're bringing onto your property is really, really important. Contain your mulch if you can. If you can put it into a CRB proof container, so something, really thick plastic. Installing netting. If you have a big pile and you can't physically put it into a container, installing netting is a great way to deter the beetle from getting into that material. And you can also use netting on things like trees and avoid stockpiling. That's just a practice that all of us are going to have to adopt, is to just not be sitting on this material for long periods of time. Once you get mulch, try to spread it as thin as possible to let it dry out. So this isn't going to completely deter beetles, but it's going to reduce the attractiveness of this as a breeding site. And it's also going to let things like chickens and other predators to find larvae if it is in that material. And of course, report any sort of suspect beetles or larvae that you come across. And most of us will be coming into contact with the beetle as larvae. And, we try to make it really easy for folks to report. We have an online reporter form. You can send us a DM on Facebook or Instagram. There's a number that you can text, and you can also email us. So whatever works best for you. And there are lookalike species. The dung beetle, these are so cute. They have a little horn, but they're not really big like CRB. So one thing that we're realizing is that some people think that beetles can start off really small and then grow, and just not how they that's not how they develop, right? So when they emerge, they're as big as they're going to be their whole life. And so Oriental flower beetle is the number one report that we receive. Even though it doesn't have a horn, it's black and it's kind of large and it flies during the day. And in their larval stage, they look very, very similar to CRB. Some of the distinguishing characteristics between the two is this raster line. So the Oriental flower beetle has this line on its hind end, and CRB do not have that. They also crawl differently, and I have a video in the next slide. And the way that they curl into themselves, the Oriental flower beetle, they kind of make a E shape. While the CRB, the way I think of it is they're just so fat. The CRB can't tuck themselves into like their pico. They make like a C shape. And so here's that video you can see of the Oriental flower beetle. You can see its raster line and you see its legs are in the air. It's really funny how they move. So yeah, main thing is when you come across a larva, don't panic. Try to get video, pictures, and report it to us, and we can help you figure out what it is. We've had lots of reports of CRB being in other parts of the island, but often we don't have video or photo or the actual beetle to confirm. And so it's really important for us to get that specimen so that we can get the resources, into these new detection areas. And reporting palm damage, of course, is really important. But again, it takes many months for this to become visible to the human eye and on those outermost fronds. But, when I drive, I'm always looking for palm damage. And, it's a good practice to have for sure. If you're interested in joining our detection trap network, you can reach out to us and we can train you up and show you how to deploy your trap and how to submit your weekly or monthly reports. And we also do CRB training. So we've been doing a bunch of these at different resorts, training landscapers and tree trimmers on just like what we're doing today, how to spot the damage, but also how to control for the beetle. And so if you're interested in this, please reach out to us, or if you know anybody who has a business that would benefit from a training like this, we'd love that connection. And of course, spread the word. I think, all of you are here today because you are aware and because you care about this issue, but there are so many people that still haven't heard about the beetle and still don't understand just how destructive this beetle can be. And we really don't want to wait 10 years for that level of awareness to be there. We really want to do as much as we can to spread the word and to get people to realize that everybody has a place in this fight against the beetle. And yeah, if you know of any teachers who want us to come to their classrooms, we'd love that connection as well. And I think this might be all I had. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had time for questions. And yeah, mahalo.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kawehi. We do have some questions coming in. Great presentation. I can tell you know a lot of this stuff really well. So first question, how many offspring can one female beetle produce in her lifespan, and what percentage of the offspring are females, if you know that answer?
Ooh, I don't know about the sex ratio. But yeah, like I mentioned, one female can lay about 90 eggs. They're laid in clutches. So just a few eggs at a time throughout her lifespan. But maybe Mason might know the answer to that.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of other experts on here. If one of those other experts does have the answer, and if not, what I'm going to do is questions that we don't get answered, I'm going to write down. As long as you are signed up through my Google Forms and I have your contact, I will give you that answer after we figured it out, and we can also address that answer at the next update session. Um,
Nice. Thanks for doing that.
yeah, of course. So it's possible we don't have an answer for the percentage that's female, but we can get that answer for you, George. Um, Another question, mulch being used for decoration, what depth is recommended, Kawehi? Is there a typical depth that's good or bad for CRB larvae in mulch? Because I'm assuming a lot of people are going to want to continue to mulch decoratively or for other purposes in their yard, farm, garden. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe it's 2 inches, which, is really thin. I know places, organizations like NRCS that provide funding to farmers and producers, require more depth. But yeah, it also varies on where you are. Like 2 inches in Hilo where it rains a lot, that material is still probably going to have a lot of moisture and have the potential to harbor beetles. Um, and the beetles have been detected in places like Oahu, like under the soil even. And so while this is a good practice, it's not necessarily, there's no um, particular depth where you won't find beetles, if that makes sense.
And just in case you're not paying attention or you can't see the chats, one other expert gave us an average of over 90 eggs per female are laid, and we're still not sure about the female ratio. So for you, Kavehi, somebody's asking, what will be done with unmanaged green waste piles? Are they being removed? In what way are they being taken care of, essentially?
Yeah, this is a big one, and this is kind of the newest focus of ours. We've really been focusing on managing this detection network, but realizing that these unmanaged green waste piles are going, especially if they're in this infestation area, are going to be a big problem. And so we're in talks with the county and Department of Transportation, Department of Agriculture, really trying to figure out the best way at eliminating these are. And so I don't have a good answer for that, just that we are working on it. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, if Glenn can chime in, that'd be great.
Go for it, Glenn.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Glenn Sacco, I'm with the County of Hawaii Department of Research and Development. I've been working with the multi-agencies and trying to coordinate some of our responses to this situation. And so, as Kavehi mentioned, the Department of Transportation has been very active in uh, allowing the use of some of their equipment, such as excavators and the staff. And we've also been working, the county has supplied the, how do you call that? Like those transfer station trailers, um, which, hold, I don't know, like 40 cubic yards, something like that. And so if we can get the equipment into these areas, then working together with these different agencies, we'll load them up. We'll also waive the tipping fees at the West Hawaii Organic Facility and take the suspected organic matter to that facility to be treated. Oh, and of course, before that, they do try to windrow the organic matter and fumigate it before it leaves to try to kill any of the grubs so that it makes the processing easier. But we're also trying to, in the work, we're setting up a additional green waste collection site that is below the ag park in Kona, and I think it's going to cost approximately $2 million. But the Department of Environmental Management has been working on that, and we need to also work with, I think it's Host Park, as far as accessing part of their property and the permits with Department of Health. So, we're trying to encourage the producers and the residents in that area to bring their green waste down, making it closer for them so that we can avoid the accumulation of organic matter and reduce the possibility of these breeding sites for the CRB. Thank you.
Mahalo, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I think Glenn discussing this is showing the number of partners in terms of who's responding to CRB. There's a number of partners that are addressing this issue, and so it's not just Big Island Invasive Species Council. It's also Department of Ag and Biosecurity, CRB Response, Department of Transportation, Department of Land and Natural Resources, among others. And everybody's got their role. Are there any additional questions? Oh, so the question is, can green waste be open more than 3 days a week? This would help homeowners dispose of their green waste. So I think that's another department.
Yeah.
Another.
So that's if they're referring to that Kealakehe transfer site. Yeah. And that is something that has been brought up. We're still, I still need to talk to DEM and also with the Hawaii Environmental Recycling, who handles the green waste. So that has been brought up before, and we're trying to work through this. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Glenn, for being willing to answer some questions. Okay, good question from Keith. Is injecting palms with imidacloprid 100% effective at preventing CRB damage to that palm?
Ooh, that's a good question.
You want
Mason.
me to chime in for this one?
Sure,
Yeah,
go for it, Mason.
All right, sounds good. So imidacloprid injections are typically applied at the base and it's vascularly absorbed. So when you're looking at our neonicotinoid treatment first to make sure that the flowers are cut off. And now 100% effective, it depends on the duration of that time frame. So it probably takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get to the crown of the palm after injection. And laboratory trials I conducted showed more paralysis about 7 months after treatment. So that's the data we have. So I mean, 100% effective is probably within the windows of the 2.5 to 7 months after injection, and that can be combined with also crown treatments because there's different modes of action.
Great. And I think, one other thing that's brought up is the beetles do have to feed on the tree to become in contact with the imidacloprid, correct, Mason?
That's correct. Yeah.
So, so one thing that I know we saw on Oahu, right, was that even if you're treating the trees, if you or your neighbors have green waste, you're going to have beetles that are moving onto your site, feeding on your trees, then dying. But if you have green waste, that's the biggest area of control. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mason or Kawehi, but we're really looking for green waste control as one of the other methods for controlling these beetles. Yeah.
yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Um, and oh, great. So Jeff is saying he's proud of Big Island attempts at eradicating beetles. And he's at Kauai, at the National Tropical Botanical Garden, and it's affected with CRB. And um, and then one of the question is, why is the state not more proactive to help with this small island, to help with spread? I think there is a lot of action here. What I've seen from the folks that are responding to CRB is more response than I thought was imaginable. But it's a very big problem, and once it's on an island, it's very hard to control. But everything possible is being done to control and keep CRB under control, both on Big Island and across the state.
Russell, can I also chime in?
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to add to Jeff's comment, that we were all aware, of course, we've all been aware of the damage of CRB on Oahu. And we are aware that, eventually it would come to this island. When we had that wake-up call at Waikoloa, It then started the process of, the communications and getting ready. Now, unfortunately, we are still under-resourced and everybody, and understaffed, but at least the different agencies were on board, ready to go. And that's the result of this when, we're all in it together. We are saying even though it's in the Kona area, we all don't want it to spread. So we're trying to keep it under control as much as possible until we can get other control whatever methods in place to help knock this CRB out. Thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, I was recently on Kauai too, and it's really, really sad and upsetting to see what the damage is looking like, especially in the Wailua area. But like you said, at the NTBG, they have a lot of special lolu and other really important palms. And, I think the difference between Kauai County and our county is that interagency collaboration. We really have a bunch of different organizations working together on the response. And I know the Kauai Invasive Species Committee, they don't have really any dedicated funding for CRB. And so we're really grateful for the funding that we got from the county this year. Was our first time getting a sizable amount of funding to really just focus on CRB. And so, yeah, I'd like to see continued support for our island because our island is huge. And right now, we only know of the beetle to be in Kona, and we really hope to keep it that way. But it's possible that it could pop up in other areas. And so, the work that we're doing is really trying to focus on that community piece as well. And that's something that we haven't seen much of in terms of CRB response across the state. And just thinking about the beetle overall, it's a horrible pest across the Pacific, and it's really hard to eradicate. And so, we have our work cut out for us.
Hey, Kawehi, do you mind if I chime in on this Kauai question?
Yeah.
Nice, Russell. So for Jeff, with the initial Kauai interdiction, it was found through the ports of entry monitoring program at the Kauai airport, and an island-wide survey revealed that it was also found, I believe, all the way near Hanalei within the first few weeks, which indicated that green waste was moved into these large rural areas. So currently, there are some DOT operations to mitigate green waste, and there is some smaller interagency collaboration on Kauai. But one of the difficulties with CRB when it reaches wild areas is that we typically lose containment. You look at Oahu, it was contained until it reached Kunia agriculture area, and then we lost the battle. So for 7 years, we had it in urban areas. So I think Kauai would have probably seen a more intense response if it was only confined to the airport area. But because it was found in the Wailua area, there still is interagency responses. There's still is this, but it's on a lower tier. And also to add for their funding question, there is a lot of really excellent science you can find on BIISC's website, CRB Response's website. We know a lot more now than we did even in 2023 when it was found there. So we're short-staffed in capacity with all these pests, so it really does come down for established islands to have community engagement, and that can still include statewide collaboration with agencies. So I think discussions should be have about funding in critical areas and to see what we can do because these are critical collections on Kauai.
Thanks, Mason, for jumping in. Great comments. The next question is a two-part one. They came in separately, but are CRB breeding sites being found in deep, inaccessible gulches in the Kona area? And how can we get more funding? This is a great one. How can we get more funding? What should all citizens do? And I think this will be multiple people answering this one.
I don't think that any have been found in any sort of inaccessible gulches. I guess we're kind of lucky with where the beetle was first detected. So it's in that Kona airport area. So it's a lot of lava. Um, and the Keauhole Ag Park is just a high concentration of nurseries and businesses that have all of that sort of, the palms, the green waste, the mulch. And then let's see, the second question is about funding. Um, Yeah.
I'll answer that one.
Okay.
I can. So as far as funding from the county, like Kawehi mentioned, last year the council put in $250,000 to BIISC, and this year's budget also has a similar amount in the budget, to support the BIISC's efforts to control invasive species, in which they could then shift, most of these funds towards CRB if needed, okay, depending on, how these control efforts are going along. My thing is, what should all citizens do? First of all, you guys, the citizens should be, or residents should be educated about, the CRB life cycle and how it's breeding, how it's moving. And we also would encourage them to sign up to be, what do you call that, community, to have a community track to help out BIISC with their survey efforts to find out the spread of the CRB. And this would really help so that we can focus our treatment efforts in the areas where the CRB, on the fringes of the CRB expansion, so that we can try to keep it contained within a certain area. So, that's, I think, the residents have a big part to play in this control effort. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Glenn. So we're going to wrap it up here with the questions. I do want to end with a couple of comments and just some information. In the chat, I put a sign up form that if you want to have announcements for additional seminars, you can sign up there with your email contact and you will receive the updates for the next seminar sessions and also any additional updates that I would send out. The next meeting is going to be held on December 12th, 2025, 12 to 1. It's going to be both in person and online. So if somebody wants to attend in person, it will be at Komohana Research and Extension Center. That's 875 Komohana Street in Hilo. And that's conference A201. It's the upstairs conference room. And it will be held online at this same webinar link. If you want to register, as I said, register via this form. I also put a comment in there. We are going to hopefully make these videos available for those that aren't able to attend these seminars on the Big Island Invasive Species Committee YouTube channel. You'll just have to give us some lead time to get these videos uploaded. And if you have anybody in your community, family members, friends that you think would benefit from coming to these brown bag seminars, make sure to send some of these announcements to them as well or invite them to come in person. With that being said, if there are no additional comments or closing remarks, thank you so much, Kawehi. Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Mason, and thank you everybody else for coming. And please continue to come, and we can work on this problem together. Aloha.
Mahalo.